So, shall we begin? The time has come for yet another hurl of stones, logic and reasoning spectacular. The great deduction. The game is the food. Topic 1. Mystery Man's aim. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business do you venture to this pawnbrokery today. You claim to have followed this pickpocketeer, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different. As revealed by that which you hold in your hand. Yes, what brought you to this shop in the first place is a staff recruitment flyer. The piece of paper in your hand is a staff wanted advertisement, bleh, from this very shop. Yet, even the most unobservant would soon realize that the man of your appearance has no need of such employ. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane, which you unwittingly clutch to your person, exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter what? I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the missing ferrule. Was ist ferrule? Frage. Ferrule. Zwinge, Presshülse. Achso, quasi das Endstück von dem Ding.
Ferrule.
Ferrule, okay. The end of any walking cane would be terminated with a metal ferrule to protect the wooden tip. And yet, detailed analysis shows the wooden tip of the stick to be utterly bare. Therefore, there's only one conclusion. The wad that you hold in your hand, which appears to be a walking cane, is in fact no cane at all. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoiling, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this wad you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see? From the moment I saw it, my suspicions were aroused. What walking cane demands such a stout handle? Mused I. Und welcher junge Mann braucht so eine... überhaupt so einen Gehstock? Na gut, war damals Fashion, ne? But of course, as I said, there is no walking cane. No, that what? Oh! It's the broken handle of a shovel. What? Are you insane? And now, having determined this undeniable truth, the conclusion is clear. Your true motive for coming here was to take employment at this establishment in order to excavate the ground beneath the premises. Bitte was? What a calculated crime you have conceived, sir. A wickedly calculated crime. Conclusion? To tunnel underneath the pawnbrokery. Ja, ich glaube auch. Tunnel einfach unter der Pfandleierei, okay. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. Ich habe jetzt leider nicht gesehen, was war die nächste... Ich habe jetzt leider nicht gesehen, was das Topic war. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, intend to excavate the ground beneath this pawnbrokery with a broken shovel. What on earth do you propose I could expect to find here? Some long-forgotten treasure, I suppose. Save for such a fanciful theory, what possible reason could I have to do as you say? Oh, but there's ample reason. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider what would motivate the man to infiltrate a shop such as this and covertly dig beneath its floor? The answer is revealed by the council notice on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. This letter gives notice of public works to be carried out in the local area. And according to the enclosed plan of the upcoming sewerage works, beneath the shops runs a sewer that adjoins another, one that runs under the bank on the opposite side of the road. Oh, also die Kanalisation geht zur Bank quasi. This madness had entered the sewers now, has it? By excavating the ground beneath our feet, you would gain access to the waterway that flows in very close proximity to the great vault of the financial institution opposite. What are you... In summary, sir, you devised a master plan to pull off an elaborate bank robbery by dint of the underground tunnels. Masterplan? Ich glaube, das ist sehr weit hergeholt, aber okay. Which brings us at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. With what plunder did the thief hope to make off from the underground vault of the bank? Are you quite serious? Having consulted with Scotland Yard some days ago, I happen to know the answer. But naturally, the answer is no secret to you, is it, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you are talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. A postcard of the Great Exhibition. I'm afraid you've quite lost me. Die große Ausstellung wurde schon mal erwähnt. Currently in the final stages of preparation, the Great Exhibition will soon be underway. And the government has provided extra funds to complete its centerpiece, the Crystal Tower. Funds that currently sit in the vault of the bank, on the other side of this road. Pardon? Yes, the considerable crime you have been contemplating is the theft of that which sits in the vault of that bank, the special reserve funds of the Great Exhibition. Of course, that is top secret police information, so keep it under your head, please. Great crime, also, to steal the Great Exhibition's reserve funds. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this pawnbroking puzzle. Mr. Holmes. Das hat uns jetzt irgendwie nicht weitergeholfen, wem die Disc gehört. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, an impressively upbeat deduction for a detective wrecked with loneliness, would you not agree? Was it true what you said about the bank over the road and what it has in its vault? Indeed, though few know of its existence, it is one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Gregson told me in the strictest confidence. But you just announced it to everyone here, rather loudly in fact. Ah, and if it's such a big secret, how would Mr. Benedict have come to find out about it? There can be but one explanation for that. Clearly it is because the man is a criminal. But what if he didn't know anything about the money in the vault? If he is a criminal, as you said, then buying a brand new shovel is sure to be the first thing he does now that you've revealed the secret. Oh. Or if he doesn't, maybe Mr. Windybank will. He already has plenty of shovels here after all. Oh my life, I assure you, I'm not so unscrupulous. Well, hopefully this has taught you a valuable lesson. Sensitive information must be handled with the utmost of care. One can never be sure that someone privy to secrets won't disclose them, and once the word is out, it's out. Perhaps I'll think twice before confiding in you next time. Mr. Sholmes. An excellent idea, Mr. Naruhodo. An excellent idea. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, you know what to do, I'm sure. Yes, let's listen to that great deduction again, and see if we can message it into shape. Okay. Very well then, let us start once more from the beginning. Of Sherlock Holmes' magnificent logic and reasoning spectacular. Jetzt kommt die Kurskorrektur. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Holmes. Mystery Man's aim. Conclusion: to tunnel underneath the pawnbrokery. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you ventured to this pawnbrokery today. You claim to have followed this pickpocket here, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different, as revealed by that which you hold in your hand. Yes, what brought you to this shop in the first place is the staff recruitment flyer. So by Mr. Holmes' reasoning, Mr. Benedict came here in order to apply for a job, so he could dig down through the floor. Yes, in an attempt to tunnel into the sewers to gain access to the money in the vault of the bank across. But he wouldn't get very far with a broken shovel, would he? No, I think it's fair to say his motives lie elsewhere. The question is, where? What did bring Mr. Benedict here at this particular point in time? Staff recruitment flyer. Oh, was ist das hier? Scribbled writing. Oh! Look at all the scribbled notes on the back of the flyer here. Soll das eine Zeichnung von Lestrade sein? Von Gina? I don't believe it. What is it? Listen to what it says. Name: Gina Lestrade. Height: 5'2". Green cap, scruffy waistcoat, grubby white shirt, blue satchel. Wag. It's a detailed description of Miss Lestrade. Goodness. There's even a sketch of her, head and all. Although, if you showed it to her, she'd fire the smoke grenade launcher in his face for sure. And look, the details of the shop have been written down here too. Windy Bank's Pawnbrokery, Baker Street. Redemption deadline 15th April. Which is today's date. I want Mr. Benedict to have all that information scrawled on the back of that piece of paper. Info about Mr. Lestrade.
Take that!
Yes, what brought you to this shop in the first place is the info about Mr. Lestrade. Quite so, my dear fellow. It would appear that the writing and sketch on the reverse of the flyer pertain to the pickpocket, Mr. Lestrade, and to Mr. Windybank's pawnbrokery here. Ah! You originally told us that you had merely given chase after Mr. Lestrade stole the redemption ticket from you. But that, sir, is a thinly veiled lie. It is the information on the back of the flyer that led you here today, by which I mean here, to Windybank's pawnbrokery, and today, the redemption deadline of that overcoat. So, you waited outside for the young girl matching the description you have written down to arrive. And you have gone to some length to hide the reason for your pursuit of Miss Lestrade. In other words, there's some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane, which you unwittingly clutched to your person, exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter what? I've had at this cane for years. Okay. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the missing ferrule. What's a ferrule? It's a metal cap commonly found on the end of a cane, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, the bit that makes a nice clicking sound on the pavement. Yes, exactly, and Mr. Holmes is right, it appears to be missing on this cane. But it doesn't actually look broken, does it? No, it doesn't, though the gentleman certainly did recoil when Mr. Holmes identified the cane as suspicious. In other words, there's some secret about the cane that Mr. Benedict would rather we don't know. Okay. Gucken wir mal. initialing? Look here, Mr. Sato. There are some letters on the handle. Ah yes, those must be initials, I think. In the West, it's customary for people to engrave their belongings with the first letters of the name. Da steht ja AG und nicht EB. So, oh look, Sholmes would be HS, you mean? That's right. And the initials on this cane, obviously. Oh, AG. Why does it feel as though that's not quite right? Initialing. The diction which I speak, of course, is the initialing. Wait, my God.
Take that!
The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the initialing. A most astute observation, wouldn't you say, Mr. Eggert Benedict? We are led to believe, sir, that your initials are EB. Yet, in a most possessive manner, you have in your grasp a cane bearing the initials AG. An incontrovertible contradiction indeed, would you not agree? No, you are wrong. This cane isn't. You said before that you'd had that cane for years. Grr. So don't try to tell us that you just borrowed it from a friend or found it in the park. In short, though you hold yourself to be a gentleman, you have withheld your true name. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoiling, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle which you evidently would like to conceal is the key to understanding this riddle, you see? Let's consider the bare bones of what's happened here. Mr. Straight redeemed that fine-looking overcoat. And now a mysterious man has appeared, introducing himself with a fake name, and claiming that the overcoat belongs to him. But we know that he actually identified Mr. Straight from a written description, which suggests that everything else he's told us is untrue. So, what we need to do here is somehow prove that the overcoat cannot possibly belong to him. Okay. AG. Oh, guck mal, hier ist was aufgerissen. Oh, the seam on the shoulder there is coming apart. Look. So it is. Do you know, a moment ago when Mr. Benedict was surprised by something that was said, I thought I heard him make a rather strange noise. It sounded a bit like a tiny growl. But now I think it was probably the sound of the seam ripping open. If you look closely, it does seem to be a very tight fit. The sleeves are stretched to bursting, and you wouldn't have a hope of fastening it at the front. If you were to run around in it, I'm sure the whole thing would fall apart. That I'd like to see. Sorry? So how can we make Mr. Benedict run around? She's really giving this some thought. Okay. Was war nochmal? The handle. The key to understanding this will you see. Ich würde sagen, der hier.
Take that!
The split seam. The split seam, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see? Ah! Yes, because the overcoat is rather obviously a poor fit. Having forced it over your broad shoulders, the seam is already breaking apart. My suspicions were aroused from the outset. When you so boldly lied about your name and so boldly waylaid this pickpocket. Ah! This catalogue of untruths has all been for one very specific purpose. To steal the article that the young girl redeemed from Mr. Windybank. Ah! But what really irks me is this. The considerable crime I initially imagined has been considerably curtailed. To abscond with a redeemed item. Was heißt abscond? To steal the Great Exhibition's funds. Great crime. Abscond. Verschwinden. Okay. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, designed a ruse to filch some tawdry article of pawnage. Have you forgotten that I redeemed the article in the proper manner using the watchword? I had not been the one to deposit it in the first place. How could I possibly have known the relevant details? N'est-ce pas? Oh, but the watchword can be discovered. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider how one might come to learn a secret watchword relating to the pawned property of another. The method is revealed by the council notice on the counter to which your eye is inadvertently drawn. The direction of the deduction must change rather dramatically now, I think. Yes, no more talk of tunneling into the sewers. Which is a pity, because it all sounded rather exciting. Anyway, you can't deny that this mysterious gentleman did know the watchword. Yes, Professor. If you didn't know that word, Mr. Windybank would never allow you to redeem the article. Or looking at it another way. If you did know that word, Mr. Windybank would allow you to redeem the article whether it was yours or not. So the question is, could this gentleman have found the watchword out somehow? Einfach vom Buch. Council Notice, Notelet. Pawnbroker's Revolver. Notelet, was steht da drauf? Look at this, Mr. Sato. Ah, it appears to be a memo that Mr. Windybank has scribbled to himself. Let's see, what does it say? Oh, Professor. Mr. Windybank must make a note of the watchword his customers give him right before their eyes. And in alarmingly clear script as well. Oh dear, I don't know where to look. Who knows what other secrets I might see. Okay, also hat es da gesehen, auf dem Notelet. The method is revealed by the notelet. The method is revealed by the notelet on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. Yes, the broker has here follows the same procedure whenever a customer comes to redeem an article. He asks the customer for the watchword and notes down the response uttered on a notelet he has to hand. Then he consults his ledger and confirms whether or not the watchword matches that of the article in question. I would expect nothing less of a diligent pawnbroker. But his diligence clearly has its disadvantages. Diligence? Was heißt Diligence nochmal? Diligence. Fleiß, Sorgfalt. Ah, okay. What are you talking about? It is increasingly apparent that you were present in this shop before your accusation against Miss Lestrade. In all likelihood, you followed her inside and then observed her talking to Mr. Windybank. When the diligent broker made a note of the watchword as is common practice, you observed him writing the word Professor on the notelet beside the ledger. And that, sir, was the master plan you devised to steal the pawned article from the young Miss Lestrade. Master plan? Which brings us at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. Why would you go to such lengths to redeem that particular article from this pawnbroker? Are you quite serious? For an ill-fitting overcoat hardly seems to justify the effort, much less a worthless music box disc. But naturally, you had very good reason to make them yours, didn't you, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us what we need to know. The articles that we are talking about are the overcoat and the music box disc that was in one of the pockets, which according to Mr. Windybank isn't even worth a penny. And yet this man went to such lengths to steal them. Why? I wonder if perhaps we already have the evidence. We need to explain it, Mr. Naruhodo. Could we? Really? I'd better have a thorough look through all the evidence we've collected so far. Weil der McGilded drauf stand und der... Oh, vielleicht McGilded war ja so ein Kredithai. Vielleicht hat er einen Kredit bei ihm aufgenommen. Oder so. Aber das macht ja keinen Sinn, warum er die Disc haben möchte. Ah, okay. Was wird das wohl erklären? Ich denke mal das Armband, ne? Nein, die Music Box Disc.
Take that!
You see, this music box disc tells us all we need to know. What's that? On the back. It reads for McGilded. Ah! Mr. Magnus McGilded, the unfortunate philanthropist who perished in curious circumstances at the Old Bailey 2 months ago. A prominent man in London, though his loan-mongering demonstrated a distinct lack of scruples. So, you're an associate of his, are you? Or perhaps a subordinate? Oh, vielleicht so... Okay. Mr. McGilded was a man of unusually small stature. In fact, he was precisely the right size for that overcoat that you've squeezed yourself into. Your true identity remains shrouded in mystery, Mr. Eggert Benedict. But the final conclusion here is crystal clear. The reason you came to this pawnbrokery today was to retrieve an article left behind by the late Magnus McGilded. Ah! Conclusion? To acquire an item deposited by Mr. McGilded. Krass, das ist jetzt, das werde ich nochmal zurückkommen. Also ich dachte, ich hab's mir gedacht, aber trotzdem. Deduction complete. Elementary. Well, well, Mr. Magnus McGilded. Not a name I expected to hear in these circumstances. Mr. Sholmes, I'm afraid there's something very troubling on my mind. Pray tell, Miss Susato. Well, according to what Mr. Windybank told us earlier, today was the final day on which the code could have been redeemed, was it not? Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Today would be precisely 2 months since it was deposited. Well, today is 15th April, so 2 months ago today. Oh ja, das war am 15. Februar. Would have been 15th February, sir. That's right. It's all carefully recorded in my ledger. Deposited at 10:30 p.m., I see. What? But that suggests... Yes, 15th February. It's precisely the day on which the omnibus murder took place. And 10:30 in the evening. It's precisely the time at which the terrible events were unfolding. Suggestive is not the word. It would seem the matter is entirely beyond coincidence. Also war McGilded eigentlich hier und hat niemanden umgebracht. 10:30 p.m. Okay. You are of course at liberty to make whatever outlandish deductions you choose. However, I must insist you hand over the music box disc. Now. It would be a terrible shame for you to return to your native land in a box. Ah, what do I do? Ich speichere mal. Absolutely not. There are some things a man must protect at all costs. This may well be one of those things. Then again, it may not.
Hold it!
Okay. Mr. Windybank, this is my shop. I can't allow any harm to come to my customers. If that were to happen, I should have to take my own life. Mr. Windybank, no. Alright, that's enough. Oh, ich wusste, dass es der Gregson ist. Inspector Gregson. Inspector. That's right, Sunshine. The alarm was raised on one of our dedicated emergency lines. So we got here as fast as we could. Now, what's all this about, eh? Oh, praise be, you are here at last. I was moments away from forfeiting my own life in my very own establishment. It would seem you have the upper hand. Why, you lot have got some explaining to do. I don't appreciate being bothered with some petty argy-bargy. Pity? Mr. Windybank very nearly met with his end. Oh, Entschuldigung. Yeah, by his own gun, as far as I can tell. Oh dear. And the whole of Britain could meet with its end if I don't get to the bottom of the case I'm supposed to be working on. What? What on earth is the case, Inspector? Spare no detail, Gregson. I might have said a little too much. No matter, it's nothing to do with you lot. Anyway, sir, you're gonna have to come with me down to the station. Was hat er gesagt? Supposed to be working on. The whole of Britain could meet with its end if I don't get to the bottom of the case I'm supposed to be working on. Okay. Okay, interessant. But of course, Inspector. Ah! He's getting away! Get after him, lads! Who's the beat officer too? Sir! There's been a spate of thefts at pawn shops around here recently. So we fitted emergency buttons underneath the counters for brokers to let us know when there's trouble. Oh, Inspector, I was very worried there for a while. Very worried indeed. Now then, Mr. Permanently in mourning. Oh, yes? I'll be taking that whatever it is of McGilded down to the yard. Thank you very much. So hand it over. Oh, yes, of course. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is. Mine. I'm sorry, miss. But anything belonging to McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now. As evidence? If the police demand something as evidence, my dear fellow, we have no choice but to capitulate. It's all yours, Inspector. Ugh. And so, we handed Mr. McGilded's disc over to Inspector Gregson, and were summarily turfed out of the shop and onto the street. To be continued. Okay. Das ist ja mal richtig interessant jetzt geworden durch McGilded. Dass das nochmal zurückkommt, ist krass. Natürlich auch irgendwo erwartbar, weil der Fall ja nicht gelöst wurde. Wir haben ihn jetzt freigesprochen bekommen. Da waren ja zwei ungeklärte Sachen halt, wie der Blutfleck dahin gekommen ist und wie der Blutfleck oben auf die Dachluke gekommen ist vom Omnibus. ob er doch schuldig war, weil er das dann ja offensichtlicherweise in der Pause, wo Gina Lestrade da mit der Rauchbombe angegriffen hat, ja irgendwie, denke ich mal, beeinflusst hat, manipuliert hat, gefälscht hat, die Beweise. Aber wir haben ihn ja freigesprochen bekommen, ne? Die Jury war überzeugt und dann ist er gestorben. Also mal gucken, ob die Wahrheit jetzt noch rauskommt und was er damit zu tun hat. Weil die Disc, die wurde jetzt auch, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, wurde die Disc ja jetzt, sag schnell, wurde die Disc ja zu dem Zeitpunkt abgegeben, in der Pawnbrokery, wo er ermordet wurde, um 10:30 Uhr. Also wo McGill den Mord durchgeführt hat oder auch nicht durchgeführt hat. Wir haben ja nie einen Täter gefunden in dem Fall. Einen anderen Täter. Deswegen alles sehr kurios. Ich weiß noch nicht, ich habe noch keine Theorie, wie das jetzt noch weitergeht. Wir haben in diesem Fall bisher auch noch kein Mord oder so gehabt. Wir haben bisher noch keine Aufsicht auf den Gerichtstag. Deswegen mal gucken, was jetzt noch passiert. Und der Benedikt ist erstmal abgehauen. Okay. Gut. Ich würde dann sagen, das war's von dieser Aufnahmesession, weil ich gleich auch los muss. Und heute Abend, wenn ich dann wieder da bin, werde ich das wohl oder übel in einem Stück durchspielen. Oder vielleicht mache ich zwischendurch eine kleine Pause. Aber ich glaube, das wird noch eine sehr lange Nacht heute für mich. Aber das ist auch in Ordnung. Finale und so, ne? Finale. Oh. Okay, gut. Dann vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen, vielen Dank fürs dabei sein. Ich hoffe, ihr habt immer noch Spaß an diesem Let's Play, genauso wie ich. Und, ja, wir sehen uns im nächsten Part wieder. Haut rein, goodbye, tüdelü und Einspruch, ihr kennt's, ne? Einspruch, hehehe, Objection. Bis dann, ciao, ciao. Und, Moment mal und so, ne? Ciao.